Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you are sleeping. These terrifying crocodile experiences may cause you to never go near water again. Continue watching to explore the 4 scariest crocodile encounters. Everglades National Park. A couple decided to try paddleboarding while touring Everglades National Park in Florida, when they encounter something completely unexpected. Everything appears to be going as planned, as they look to be having a good time out on the lake. Unfortunately, the man's enthusiasm shifts abruptly when he notices a weird shadow in the water next to him. After a few minutes of paddling about, he eventually gets a good look at the alligator. To obtain a good photo of the predator, he boldly lowers his camera into the water many times, but is unable to catch anything worthwhile. Feeling like they've seen enough, they attempt to paddle away when the alligator has other plans. Now fearing for their safety, they decide to completely leave the area and thankfully make it out of there unharmed. Louisiana. In the state of Louisiana, Gator Boyvids, a YouTuber, was out paddling with his son when they came upon a floating noodle that appeared to be attached to something. He tries to pull it up, but what comes to the surface isn't what he expected: a massive alligator. In disbelief, he continues to pedal while looking behind to make sure they aren't being pursued by the crocodile. He just decides to leave the place, still in amazement at what has just occurred.
Oh my God! That's a big gator, buddy.
Grand Harbor, Texas. Texas YouTuber Jordan Armacost decided to take his dog, Aria, on an amazing kayaking adventure near Grand Harbor. He had no idea that the waters were packed with bloodthirsty alligators. While gently paddling around the lake, the man moves his dog away from the ledge when he notices an alligator's head sticking out of the water. It's presumably waiting for a moment to snare poor Aria. He attempts to escape the location, but is forced to return after sighting another gator's head. Scared for his and Aria's life, he turns the kayak around and paddles away from the terrifying creatures as fast as he can. Ferocious alligator. 2 Australian fishermen were fishing in the lake in the hopes of catching barramundi, when a ferocious saltwater crocodile decided it was time to eat. After finally catching a fish, the man proceeds to drag it as hard as he can towards him. When they notice another creature swimming in the water, a ferocious alligator. The crocodile is now reaching the beach. The men had no choice but to flee immediately in order to rescue themselves. With the beast now digesting its tasty supper, the men merely stand there in disbelief of what has just happened. North Carolina. A man kayaking calmly in North Carolina became the unlucky victim of a furious and aggressive alligator. He appears to be having a nice time kayaking about the isolated river, even though he is not expecting anything to happen. At some time, though, he hears something close that causes him to come to a complete pause. Despite the oddness, he doesn't think much of it and decides to continue on his quest. What occurs next will very certainly surprise you. He manages to flip the kayak in time, despite his adrenaline rush, and takes a few seconds to collect his breath. He didn't want to put his life in danger again. He hastily turns his boat around and paddles away as soon as he can. Florida. A man in Florida on a simple kayak stumbled upon a massive alligator that didn't appear to be thrilled to have a visitor at first. After noticing the animal in the water, he grabs his camera. He was only a few steps away from him. Consequently, his boat begins to drift towards the predator. This has caused him to become concerned about his safety. I'm hoping he doesn't freak out, now that he's only inches away from the threatening monster. Takes a few steps back, but finally comes to a halt to defend itself. The man merely lets the boat pass over him and sits in astonishment. Massive crocodile head. A pleasant canoeing adventure by a few lads in South Africa rapidly ended in disaster, when their seemingly harmless crocodile encounter turned into a life-threatening situation when paddling along the narrow river. After watching a massive crocodile head burst out of the water in the distance, the man filming jumped in terror. He zooms close to capture the animal's massive size. As it abruptly vanishes back into the dark sea, the camera stops filming, and what occurs next is unfortunately unknown. Fishing for barramundi. Louis, an Australian YouTuber, and his mates were out fishing for barramundi when they captured something that no one anticipated to catch. One of the men nearly immediately captures something exceptionally hefty after finally locating the appropriate area to fish. They finally see bubbles rising to the surface.
Look at the bubble.
Oh, that's a cool. Oh, look at the bubbles there.
As a result, they suspect the worst. The crocodile has presumably swallowed the fish that was initially captured in and now has the fishing lure entirely trapped in its jaws. To avoid endangering the animal, the guys decide to cut the fishing line as near to the mouth as possible. Understandably pleased with themselves, they go about their business as if nothing had happened. Brazil. A group of pals had a normal crocodile encounter along a river in Brazil. They took a steep turn, regrettably. They first try to keep a safe distance from the predator as it crawls up from the water ahead. Nothing out of the norm appears to be going on as they merely stand there staring at the animal. When they glance behind them, fearful for their safety, they all start backing up as the predatory crocodile walks directly in their path. With the creatures looking them down, the group of pals simply observes and finally stops filming. Carson Rudd, a YouTuber. On a bright day, Carson Rudd, a YouTuber, and his pals were out for a normal hike in the woods. They weren't expecting much when they noticed a huge alligator that turned out to be a little too interested. They take a stroll around the park for a few minutes. When they finally arrive upon a muddy river quickly, one of the lads notices an alligator to the right and fearlessly crouches along the river's edge in the hopes of attracting its attention. For whatever reason, the man remains in position just inches from the alligator. As the curious predator crawls up to him, they all gladly decide to walk away and return to their car, not wanting to cause any more problems. Texas. The YouTuber, Fish Whisperer, and a friend were out fishing for catfish in Buffalo Bayou in Texas. When they captured something, no one could have predicted everything appears to be going according to plan at first, as they catch a reasonably huge one and proudly show it off to the camera. They'd finally relocate to a whole new section of the river and resume their operations. When the man filming suddenly catches something that appears to be extraordinarily heavy, he draws the gator closer to him and attempts to shoot it from a closer angle to grab some fascinating footage. During their weekend discussion of alternative possibilities, something unexpected happens to the fishing line. They were able to exit the incident undamaged and continue with their day as usual. Florida. A man was fishing calmly on his paddleboard on a river in Florida when a seemingly ordinary alligator encounter swiftly escalated into a nightmare for the first part of the day. The man appears to be having a good time on the river and even manages to catch a few fish. Unfortunately, when he notices an alligator swimming to his right, things swiftly take an unexpected turn. Now that the predator is approaching him, he has no option but to fight for his life. He tries to paddle away. Unfortunately, the animal will not back down that simply. The alligator is now back underwater, and the man reclaims the chance to paddle away from him. Florida. YouTuber Bluegate was out with his kids setting crawfish traps on a ranch in Florida. When he came too close to what appeared to be a safe pond, they go about their day as usual, not expecting anything awful to happen, and they successfully plant several traps in surrounding ponds. All the while avoiding problems, they stumble upon a little marsh and decide it would be an excellent site to set a trap. He luckily manages to recover his trap securely and moves around the puddle in the hopes of finding the alligator. With his stick, he is now concerned for his child's safety. He concludes that it would be best for everyone if they went about their business somewhere before anybody gets hurt. And now, let us move on to our subscriber pick of the day. This image was sent to us by a subscriber. Similarly, if you ever wish to know more about an image you come across, just send it to us. Who knows, we might even feature it in one of our videos. In today's subscriber pick, an alligator is seen charging towards a man. It took place in Central Florida when two men attempted to grab a newborn alligator from a pond, when a nearby mother changed her mind. One of the men enters the lake with a net and manages to grab a newborn alligator. He tries to grab control of it very soon. When the unthinkable happened, I had to reveal it to the camera. The man tries to make a statement about the issue, but the enraged mother alligator isn't done demonstrating her point, which says it all. Fearing for their life, both guys decide to take their belongings and flee the location before something horrible happens. Wildlife Facility. After noticing a stealthy Nile crocodile looking at him in the water at a wildlife facility, an unwitting guy realized he was being pursued. To trigger a response, he decides to test it by tossing a stick into the sea. Crouching down at the water's edge is a bad idea. Fortunately, it decides to spare him and retreats into the dark river. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.